And we're back. It's another X-Men recap. My titling just proved to be just killer for me on my last video. I love how like nobody watched my first couple recaps. Then all I do is like title it in reference. I was referencing it to Gambit. I wasn't really trying to create clickbait, but I created clickbait and got like 300 views just by people being like, "What? What is this?" My bad. Um, but I appreciated the views, but I had a lot of people coming in with comments like, the series is great and it's doing amazing things. Yeah, it's making choices like all series should. Uh, but I kind of, I do kind of wonder if they shouldn't have just been given their own X-Men series at this point, because like what's the point of coming in if you're just gonna rewrite everything and like kill off all the characters? Could you imagine like if they like revived Buffy and then like in the first 5 episodes they just killed everybody off? And they're like, well, we have a new Slayer, and you're like, why did you take this show on? Like, what? Why is this like a continuation of the previous story? Like, they seem very hell-bent on reimagining this universe. And this episode was so bizarre. Um it just was. Uh it's okay, so Professor X is not dead. He's married to Lalandra in space. Cool. Thanks for this storyline. So we spent quite a lot of time in this episode with the Shi'ar Galaxy and the various characters. If you can name all the Shi'ar, that's when you know. That's the next level of X-Men fan. I knew Gladiator. I remembered him, but they were starting to talk about other Shi'ar members, and I was like, listen, I did not memorize all these people. It's like I know Alpha Flight exists, and I could name maybe like a couple of them, but not all of them. Like the Canadian X-Men. um, yeah, so uh, I I know Lalandra's storyline, and I was really disappointed when the live action Dark Phoenix film does not use Lalandra, because that was the natural progression of the Phoenix saga. That's how we meet Lalandra, and basically Jessica Chastain just plays somebody who's like Lalandra, but not. And it's so weird. It's like, why did you do that? Like, what? You know, I'm not Iceman. I'm Freeze Boy. Like, why would you create heroes that are like, I don't do that. Like, th- that's why you don't do it with other heroes, because it's stupid. But then you do it for Lalandra because you're like, oh well, nobody really knows but there's already a created person for that role. There's already a you just went and damn you. Anyway, I'm gonna have lots of thoughts when I get to Dark Phoenix. But yeah, this is their dynamic is so bizarre for a kids animated series. The whole dynamic with uh between Xavier and Lalandra, and he's like, they think I'm your pet. Although that wouldn't be the worst thing. Down, boy, you can bark later. I was like, what the fuck are we doing in this show? Like, what? Who is this show for? At this point, they should just honestly be like, this show is not actually for kids. This show is actually for a whole bunch of like, like 40-year-olds who grew up with the X-Men cartoon, like 30, 40-year-olds. So we're gonna put weird sexual humor jokes into the show just to make people feel uncomfortable. Um, I was like, I just don't, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess And then, but somebody's going to defend that writing. They're going to be like, this is a well written show. This is great. Things are going well. And then like I'll do this review, and then somebody will come in and be like, Disney is on fire. It's a dumpster fire at Disney. I'm like, Disney is not totally on a dumpster fire. They're just struggling somewhat creatively. I don't know. This is what happens, by the way, when you hire a producer who's also on OnlyFans. this is this is why, we were all like, "No, did they fire they fired the showrunner for X-Men '97 because of OnlyFans? That seems weird." Oh, now it makes sense because his dialogue ends up being very weird. Like he's allowing some really weird shit to be in this show. The show doesn't even make any sense. I love that Xavier's thought and the writers. It felt like the guy was on OnlyFans and his writer came in the room and was like, I don't know, we've got Xavier and he's up there and Shi'ar and they're fighting and we don't know how to resolve it. And guy's like, I don't know, just have Xavier pull them into an astral projection of a classroom and then he can teach them like, you know, like the children are bad and the teacher's going to teach them and make them good. Like, that scene was so dumb. I love the X-Men, but that scene is so dumb. Like, you're taking aliens, the Shi'ar, and putting them in they don't even have classrooms. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just, why are you assuming that they have the same setup? And you're like, raise your hand. Okay, so A, they don't have classrooms. B, they don't, culturally, you're expecting them to raise their hand. The whole scene was dumb. I enjoy the X-Men. I'll watch X-Men's Origins Wolverine, and I would watch this show again. But the thing about X-Men is that I can acknowledge that something is stupid and still love it and watch it. It's a very weird world that I live in, but I need X-Men in my life. Always have, always will, even if it's shitty. I need even shitty X-Men in my life. Even that X-Men anime that ran around for a little while, that was actually pretty cool. I shouldn't be suggesting that was shitty, but that was fine. The X-Men anime. Yeah, this is, the writing on this is concerning. And why was Nightcrawler in the opening credits, but then they didn't show him? Why bother add him to the opening credits of an episode he's not in? Like, what is the point of that? This show with the opening credits is like the least trustworthy opening credits to a show ever. Because they've already, like, entered and removed people from it. Like, Bishop was not originally in, if you watch the X-Men animated series, he's not originally in the opening credits. So they actually had to add him for 3 episodes and then remove him. It's so bizarre. Anyway, Nightcrawler, I guess, is going to be more prominent later on in another episode. The other half of the episode we spent with Storm and Forge as they continue to figure out what the is going on in their life. Like, just Storm is talking to herself, I think. I don't know. Like, she has spawned some sort of, like, demon force that's angry at her for not being the best that she could be. I don't know. I was so confused. I was like, I thought this was going to be the Shadow King, but this doesn't appear to be the Shadow King. This just appears to be Storm. Like, Storm has created, like, some sort of angry entity version of herself. I don't know. Might still be the Shadow King, but I thought that's where they were going to go with that. But, you know. And then Sinister shows back up. He's working with Bolivar Trask, and that's how he got the Master Mold and reappeared with the Sentinels and wiped Genosha. And turns out that was all Sinister. Well, not surprised. He is one of the biggest main villains the X-Men have fought. So, and since one of the other ones is now the leader of the X-Men, there are very few people for them to tap into. So that's it. But yeah, most of the X-Men are not actually featured in this episode. If you haven't watched it yet, well, I just ruined it for you. But if you haven't watched it, it's pretty much the people who we thought were part of the X-Men, who then got ejected from the X-Men / killed off between Storm and Professor X. That's kind of where the series is focused this episode. It doesn't really focus on anything else. Anyway, so it'll be interesting to see what is in the next episode. But I do love the audio description for the show. I think it still is really doing a great job of doing what I would like out of a show and what some of the films don't do, which is to just go ahead and tell me which characters you are using instead of making me like wonder and be like, oh, okay, so you're describing what this mutant looks like. You know, it's like totally different. It's funny because if you watch the review that I'm going to drop today, also like simultaneously of X-Men Apocalypse, they go out of their way to not describe Jubilee because nobody actually uses her name. They go by those old school rules of audio description. And so even though Jubilee and Lana Condor are actually, I would say, I'm going to use the term above the line in that, because when you get to the end of the film, Lana Condor is actually in the before the scroll when they're listing off the names of who was in the thing, and then they do like executive producer so and so, and then you end up getting the scroll after that. She's actually in the top part with like the main cast. It's Lana Condor as Jubilee. So they wanted you to know Jubilee was in the film, and it's read in the narration, but the narrator never uses Jubilee's name. And this is all because of really outdated rules on using names. Meanwhile, X-Men is just like, so-and-so drops in. If this person drops in, this person drops in. And I'm like, cool. If I remembered all of the Shi'ar people, this would be like a big moment for me. Like, there was like Ronan, and I was like, Hawkeye's here? That was where my head went immediately. I was like, what is Hawkeye doing in X-Men? Oh, there's a different Ronan. My bad. I thought I was thinking of that, or maybe Guardians of the Galaxy or something. We've used this name a lot in Marvel, but yeah. So there was some random Ronan guy that I didn't remember, but yeah, I'll admit it. I didn't remember that character. If you're like questioning my X-Men legacy loyalty, I definitely went to Hawkeye first. I went to Samurai Hawkeye, but yeah, so I do like the fact that in the audio description here, they're just telling us which mutants are being used, so that way it's not like this weird, like, what's this guy? And he looks like this. But nobody's used his name, so I don't know, it could be anybody. Cool. They needed to do that in the last episode with the kids, with the little X-Men kids that were in the thing. It's weird how they like do it sometimes, and then other times they're like, nah, like, I don't know, was that Angel or was that Pixie? Question mark. Without the ability to fully see and understand the character design, I don't know. I don't know. They featured one of the X-Men students last episode pretty prominently in the audio description without actually naming them, and you got me. So, but yeah, the dialogue in here is a little weird, and some of the plot is just the pulling into the astral projection classroom was dumb. It just is. It's just like, he's smarter than that. It just felt odd. Feels like an odd choice for the smartest man in the world. For Charles Xavier, supposed to be this, and he's like, I'm going to pull you into a classroom. I have my abilities. I can do anything. Classroom. Anyway, so I'll give X-Men 97, remember, basically the worst X-Men films from me. I consider to be watchable. So it's everything skews differently. There's like a totally different grading system on X-Men than there is on other things. I don't know, I'll give this like a B plus, I guess. Uh yeah, whatever. The Storm and Forge thing is interesting, and I'm interested to see where they go with it, but I'm not gonna miss the showrunner. If you're asking me, like, oh, they're gonna do season 2 of X-Men '97, but it's gonna be with a different showrunner, I'll be like, great, fine, cool. Like, I'm not gonna miss this guy at all. But that's it. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and if you want to yell at me in the comments, feel free, and I'll respond. I generally respond anyway. Um, but sometimes I just like your comment or heart it. I can do all those sorts of things. So I'll see you guys with the next X-Men episode. Until then, stay frosty.